And then there was no movement for a while. And so I came up with a group called the Concerned Asians for the International District. But it was only myself, Al, and some other people. But the system doesn't know that, the establishment. I may pick up a phone. I picked, and I said, to digress, I picked up a phone once because they were going to show a film called Pork Chop Hill. And it had some racist words, such as gook and stuff in it. And even though historically there was a Pork Chop Hill in the Korean War, they should have had a preface that there are some racist remarks being made, but it should be made in the context of the film, of the period. But they didn't do that. But knowing that the film was racist, for some reason, I picked up the phone. I forgot whether it was Channel 13 or 11, but I said, I'm Frank Irigon. I'm chair of the Asians for a Fair and Responsive Media. And if you don't get this off the air, we're going to come out there and demonstrate. And sometimes, not knowing it, they were probably up for renewal of their FCC license. So sometimes things work out the way they do, and they don't like to have, especially over a film. So that night, by myself, I watched until the 12 o'clock movie came on, because it was one of those late movies. And they showed another movie. I go, yes. Oh, yeah. So it was the same way with Concerned Asians for International District. I set out some demands. One was a health center for the elderly. Other one was for Asian on the selection committee for the manager, concessions for Asians, vendors, free tickets for the elderly living in the district to attend games. Type that out. And then a friend of mine, Chris Major, who was with ASUW, associate, at the same time that I was, he and I were friends, was working for John Spellman. And this is where when you have good government, even though John Spellman's a Republican, and then looking back, I marched on his son-in-law, Brian Taggis, who was editor of the Daily. I didn't know he would be a son-in-law later on in life. He married his daughter, Margot, I believe. But anyway, John Spellman, with the help of Chris Major, took a look at our demands, and we asked to meet, and he was willing to meet with us. And so we met with John Spellman. He asked us if we could bring Ruby Chow. And I said no, he couldn't bring Ruby Chow because not knowing her politics and whether she was in step with us. And so, but she came anyway to the meeting. And so there was a handful of us meeting with John Spellman, going over our demands with him. And we wanted to make sure we had a good record, a clean record of what was being said, and so we had a tape recorder. Now, this was the days before your voice-activated, really small tape recorders. We had a big one. So we put it in the backpack, my backpack. Like we're really smart, I had the backpack on the table. And then we're talking away, and there was a large clack. About 30 minutes into the meeting, we go, whoops, tape. Had to reach inside the backpack in front of John. He's looking at us like, trying to fiddle around to switch it, And anyway, yeah. But it worked out well. We gave him our demands and stuff. Prior to the meeting, we heard Chris Major tell us that his bodyguard, John Spellman's bodyguard, was concerned. This group is coming to see the county executive. And there was a brick planter leading to the office. And he was looking at it, and he asked Chris if he could dismantle it. And Chris asked him, well, what do you want to dismantle the brick planter for? Well, they might start throwing it. Chris said, they're not going to throw bricks inside this office. Leave that planter alone. Anyway, all this comes because of the Dome Stadium demonstration, it had residual effect on his bodyguards. And that's what they're concerned with. We might go crazy and take apart this brick planter and start throwing bricks all over the place. But that wasn't going to happen. So anyway, we met, we presented John our demands. And from that, we were able to get a an Asian on the Dome Stadium Selection Committee. That was Bob Santos. You know, he went in there to represent us. And he told us later they didn't understand why we wanted an Asian on the selection committee, because it was for the Dome Stadium manager. You know, what interest would that be on us? But our interest was, one, we needed a manager who was sensitive to API, especially since it was going to be near the international district. You know, we wanted someone that we could work with. One of the persons that he interviewed was a person from Hawaii, a Haole guy from Hawaii, white guy. And they asked him, the committee asked him, well, why is it that you want to leave a nice job in Hawaii to come here and work here? And he was up front. He flat out told them, my daughter's 16 years old, and you got all these local boys hanging around her now. And so we thought it was time for us to leave Hawaii and bring her to the mainland. So all of a sudden, you know, the atmosphere with the other panel members, interviewing panel members, realized that's why we needed Bob to be on the selection committee. How could we handle, how could, because they liked the guy until he said what he did, and with Bob being there, it gave them an idea why, and that this guy isn't a right fit. If he was leaving Hawaii because these local guys were hanging around his daughter, you know, what kind of attitude does he have, racial attitude does he have towards people of color? So, you know, Bob relayed that story to us, so it worked out well. The guy that they hired, I forgot his name, the first Dome Stadium manager, was cool. And then Spellman, to his credit, took a nurse who was working on her master's degree and assigned her to do an epidemiology study of the Asian elderly in the international district. And so she went about interviewing Doug, myself, Al, and other folks, as well as the elderly, to find out what were their health needs. And she called me and asked and told me, why is Doug Chin being so obstinate about answering my questions? I'm just trying to help you guys, but he's cussing me out and stuff. So we had to call Doug, and so she's on our side, Doug. But at that time, you know, a lot of us had this thing about being surveyed, being researched, but then nothing good came out of it for the community. And so we felt the same way. But she flat out told us, I'm on your side. I realized through my studies that you guys got a lot of health problems in the ID. And this is what John Spellman needed to hear in order for him to support a health center in the ID. Because John Spellman's King County executive. We wanted a health center in the international district within city limits. To him, that's not his business. So we had to prove that there was a need for it, and that the health center would also serve those outside the city limits of Seattle, King County Asian residents. Because the closest health center was Pioneer Square. We found out that the elderly going there wasn't a good mix culturally. You had a lot of transients going to there who were druggies and alcoholics and stuff, and they were hassling our Asian elderly going there for care. And for some of them it was a long walk, or they didn't want to walk that far for health care, so that's why we wanted our own health care. Now Ruby had a different idea. What Ruby wanted to do was, Ruby Chow was King County Council. Remember, she wanted to have a mobile health facility, one that would go around King County. But to us, we didn't want that. We wanted one right in the ID. So when we met with John Spellman and Ruby was there, she asked if she could speak. And I told her, no, you can't speak.
Told Ruby Chow?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I had to explain to her later on though, because she said, you should have let me speak. And I said, hey look Ruby, we didn't want the system to use you. Because, you know, they would have used you against us, and we didn't want that to happen. Which was true, but at the same time, to us, we knew where she was coming from in regards to having a mobile, and we didn't want that. So in order for us to work together, because I have a lot of admiration for her daughter, Cheryl. You know, Cheryl Chow, great person. You know, but again, it's one of those where maybe we should have reached out more to Ruby to let her know where we were coming from, rather than thinking, well, she's here, we're here, and never the twain shall meet. So we never actually went out to reach out to her. But we got the health center. There was a health center already called the Asian Free Clinic. That's the one with Al Muramoto, Keith Muramoto's brother, who was with us, and some other brothers and sisters up in Beacon Hill. Because if you were to take a look at the center for our community, it should have been Beacon Hill. There's a lot of Asians there. But we wanted it in the international district because our focus was was the elderly. So we did it there. And then, so we got the epidemiology study done, and it corroborated what we wanted. John Spellman went along with it. And then, well, I don't know about the concessions. We never got that. And then as far as the free tickets were concerned, I don't believe we got that either. But we got most of the stuff that we wanted, at least the major stuff. And then the preservation of the ID came about because there was a public development authority of Pioneer Square. Now, Norris Botcho was aware of that and went to the international district and presented that idea to Bob Santos. You know, they have a PDA in Pioneer Square. Why don't you have one here for the ID? So that's how that came about. And Norris was also either first or second vice president of ASUW and a member of the Asian Student Coalition. So there was a lot of people that we sort of mentored in a way who followed after us. But he was there, and Bob took the idea from him. And then there was a white woman, I forgot her name, Ann Bowman or Bach, but she was very instrumental in getting our plans across, you know, the architectural plans and stuff. To Bob's credit, because he was in the ID, followed through on a lot of our ideas and demands. And a lot of us went in, did what we had to do, and moved out. And that was one of Bob's concern about, you know, movements like us. You know, we'd go in there, kick ass, and then leave. You know, we never did our follow-through. And Bob did. Without him following through, there was a lot of stuff that probably wouldn't have been done. I went with him when he was bringing the architectural plans of the International District Community Health Center to the county for them to take a look at. Jerry Ligo, who was a friend of Bob's and my friend, was King County's, forgot his title, but he was way up there as far as an API person. But he took our plans, I mean the plans that Bob had, and okayed it. And so then from there, things just happened. Nemesio called me one time if he could use the name Concerned Agent for International District for another demonstration. I said, no problem, go ahead and use it. You know, and didn't have a copyright to it, and he was using it for good, so yeah, he took it, and they did another demonstration. And then they wanted to borrow my van when they were building the Dome Stadium. I had a camper van because they wanted to spy on what was going on there. So they used my van. Selmy and those guys. So we had a good group of people. Selmy, Domingo, and brother Nemesio. And then Selmy became my son's godfather. He's Nino. That's how close we were. I remember going to a demonstration in his Monte Carlo. And I said, Selmy, man, times have changed. We used to walk to demonstrations. Now we're riding in a Monte Carlo. All right, brother. Yeah.